Hello everyone, my name is AP the Weird One, and we are back with episode 11 of The Red Ranger Becomes an Adventure in Another World, the semi-finale. This episode was interesting. I would say this was a perfect episode, perfect adaptation of Chapter 13, which all of Chapter 13 has some nice bonus material, but in a way, it felt kind of weird that it was so perfect. Like, why were we given so much goodness? It just felt off. The other thing that felt off is when we have the Kizuna Megazord fighting the Enzir's tornado. That also felt like it felt really long, like longer than expected. Kind of like how the Dark Knight felt like after the Joker got arrested. You think, oh, maybe the film's kind of wrapping up, but in realize it's only about halfway. Kind of had that similar shtick, which was interesting. And it, not necessarily in a bad way. It just kind of felt like that way. But this episode, we get an upgrade for the Megazord, and we get the second appearance in Red's case of his Berserker form, his dark form, which we'll talk about a little bit. So, what does this episode do so perfectly well? The team's in the Megazord. They fire off their laser. That doesn't work. They do Kizuna Red thinks, well, let's make a giant tornado to negate the tornado. That doesn't work. Everybody's kind of spinning down. Both Ydra and Rania are vomiting. In the manga, it only looks like Ydra is vomiting, but in the anime, it's both. You can clearly see both. And then following that, they realize that maybe they need to kind of connect the particles all together and reformat Enzir. So they kind of create a magic barrier, and it's thanks to Ydra's magic and also Rania's desire, her bond with Enzir. Unfortunately, that's not powerful enough, and she needs to create a new weapon born of her love for Kizuna Red. Kizuna Red said, I believe in you, and she's like, this is why I love you. And then emerging from his chest, he gets a new powers formed, and that's how Ydra's Megazord one is formed, and then eventually leads to the gold form. This would be Shining Gundam true form or super form, because there's going to be more upgrades, but essentially it's essentially Shining Gundam super form, and they manage to defeat it. We get an extensive scene of Rania helping Enzir. They're kind of both naked. This is the way it ends in the manga, but the fact that this scene just kind of felt like it was a little bit more, there was more to it. And while I suspect that in the DVD release, it's going to be a little bit less shiny, we're going to see some more, possibly Rania's rear end, maybe a little bit of Booba. It was one of those scenes like, did I need more fan service at the moment? But in reality, it's like, no, I got everything and just extra. It's one of those weird feelings that you kept getting things that we wanted, and even though we were like, oh man, maybe they should have been uncensored, like, well, no, it's perfectly fine. They'll do it for the DVD release. But it was a kind of weird situation. But following that scene, everybody and Enzir tells him why he did everything he is due, and the elves just like, all right, we're gonna help you out. It'll be a bit of a rough lesson, but yeah, sure. And of course, the demon of lust, the guy who helped him give him his privilege seed, comes, and he spouts like, it's my fault. All this happens. A very similar situation to what goes on in Kamen Rider Gav. Small spoiler: someone tipped a hand on doing something evil as well. But he kind of explains like, yeah, I'm the one who did this, and as lust, I want to revive mommy so I can sleep with her and be in love with her, which was interesting. And it's like, didn't you guys all feel like you wanted to lust for your mom? You're like, and no one's like, ugh. It's a great scene. They're all very baffled, and Lochi, he doesn't have parents, is like, I never had that experience, but everyone else is like, no. Kind of a weird kind of a good detail, but also kind of weird. So And this is the queen, and she's got some nice fan service. Now the manga does have it as well, but I kind of like this version better than the manga. Like you still get the same vibe, but you kind of got a little bit better with the size and everything. I don't know. The booba is a little bit more present in the manga, but it feels just way better here. I don't know. It's a weird scenario. Anyway, of course the privilege isn't. Of course, the demon of lust is not going to be alone. He calls Aodabi, the villain who we saw at the much later episode, the one who had the giant smile. In the previous town, he comes back and he actually takes out Kizuna Red for a little bit. Following that, everybody attacks, and what I appreciate about this episode is the way they do their attacking. Like, it gives everybody a chance to try to battle the demons, but they realize they're just way too weak. It's a really good moment. It's another appreciation of the scene. Like, oh, I really enjoyed that. Well, unfortunately, they're completely useless because they're all pretty much wiped out. Ydra is about to die or get stabbed by Aodabi, or the big villain, and Kizuna Red saves her, and he realizes he needs to go crazy mode, go berserk. He brings out the black bond. He kind of, he has a little bit of remembering of the past and everything about his parents' death and all that, and he transforms into Kizuna Black. Now in the manga, it's more like a solid black shape, and I do like that. But upon second viewing and everything, I'm like, oh, I love this form a little bit more. I love this form really a lot. It has that nice dark black, but it has a little bit of the dark gray. When he does transform it, like there's wild animal sounds, like to give the impression of it's like a power up, a boost and everything. Just raw power. I absolutely love that as well. Just it was just so good. And it basically ends with that. Now, one detail I thought they had skipped out upon, and I think there was a little bit of fixing later on, is while Ydra and everyone is fighting, whenever... Oh, this is the manga version. I didn't realize I had to save it. But yeah, I thought this was the better version, like I said, and then I realized, oh, this is way better. I forgot I saved it as a picture. But when she gets attacked, she gets part of her, I guess, bra or shirt gets scrapped up. This doesn't lead to like much fan service, but it's like it does have some, I guess, like a small funny detail. Kind of flaps about a little bit in later episodes, probably because they do have the booba wiggling and everything. They'll probably come into play a little bit better. But yeah, I thought they forgot this detail, and then I saw at the end, oh, they did unhinge the strap. They realized it. So it's a nice small detail. I appreciate it. They didn't necessarily need to do it, but it does come up in later scenes. I thought they might save it for the next part. But yeah, that concludes episode 11. It's, like I said, it's a perfect adaptation to 13 with a little bit of extra stuff like the golden form. Now, moving on to the finale. I'm kind of curious to what they're going to adapt. Obviously, they're going to adapt chapter 14, but what else are they going to adapt? Are they going to do the backstory for Red and Pink, why they joined? Because that would be a good spot. We could have them, like, why everyone joined. There's obviously going to be a little bit more backstory to how Kizuna Red attained Bond Black. That's also in the manga. They'll probably expand on that a little bit extra as well. There's a lot to do. And of course, it's not the end of Volume 3. Volume 3 ends with Chapter 15.2. They could easily end on 14. They could easily end on Chapter 15.2. This could be an extended episode. There's a lot to consider. I did look to see what Chapter 16 had. And yeah, you could start Season 2 with that episode, but I kind of feel like it would be better to start with the revelation, like what happens at the beginning of Chapter 15, and you kind of end off with 14 and maybe do some extra bonus episodes. I feel like that would be a little bit better, and in the next episode, Season 2, you can give the backstory for Silver, because it does get brought up. That's what I felt like they can do. I don't know. I don't have a problem which way the direction, but I am kind of curious to see where they're going to end. I think it's going to be a good finale. We've got a lot of good action coming up. This series has been great, barring one episode, but it's more of a preferential treatment, I guess I would say. Otherwise, it's been utterly fantastic. I hopefully get to season 2. I've heard that the Bond Beast will get a we'll get a model kit. They'll probably do the gold as probably an extra bit, which will have the staff. But I would love to see the just Ydra's Megazord staff in its normal colors, maybe for the regular model. And they have the gold, and then they have the gold one will have this as well. So yeah, I would probably pick up the normal version, but like the gold version's nice. I do wish it was like kind of a proper kind of Bishop Megazord, not necessarily a model kit, because this looks pretty cool. I like the normal Megazord looks really nice and everything. So yeah. Anyway, I've rambled long enough. Hopefully you guys have a rest of a wonderful day. I'm going to be having a Final Fantasy VII video later on, although I'm recording this the day before, because there's a podcast, there's the With the Will podcast I'm going to watch at 7, so no streaming, but I need to figure streaming out, and I would not figure out some other streaming stuff anyway. So anyway, hopefully you guys have a wonderful day. See you guys next time, and stay tuned for the finale, which will happen next Sunday. I'll probably have that I'll have that out on Sunday as well. A perfect end. Nothing going into Monday.